Make the routine plays routinely. This is a layup. Game number 3. It's Thursday. It's 3 things Thursday. It couldn't be easier. So make the layups and move on. Welcome to the beat. That's Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. And game number 3, the final non-conference game for Ohio State, is Saturday night. This is a Thursday. But I can't believe we're already at game 3, Birm. Like, where's the time going?
It goes by quick, man. You just never know. We spend the entire offseason going, when is the offseason going to be over? And then you blink, and here we are almost in middle part of, we're almost October. We're basically,
I don't know if that's true.
It's basically Christmas.
I don't know if that's how calendars work.
It is weird how fast it goes, but I like when it sets up this way, where there's like the 3 pre-conference games and then a break, and then you get to conference play. I guess if I was making it myself, that's how I would want it.
No, you're bringing back the pre-con?
Yeah, the pre-con sketch.
Not the pre-con non-con.
Pre-con non-con. This is a pre-con, but it's going to be interesting.
It is. All right, Ohio Bobcats, Saturday night, 2 days away from now, which is Thursday, against the number 1 team in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes. And as we look at this matchup, Birm, what is the one thing that you are most interested to see? Because it's the last opportunity before you go into Big Ten play.
Just if Ohio State can establish the line of scrimmage and run the ball early against Ohio. Ohio gave up less than 4 yards a carry to West Virginia. I mean, it's a Power 4 school, so like we're just trying to see exactly, okay, how would that translate to Ohio State? And the Buckeyes obviously did not run the ball particularly well against Texas. Statistically, significantly better against Grambling State, but I'd like to see where the actual level is for that particular water, because I don't know what to expect out of the Ohio State run game. I think if the Buckeyes get into a situation where they just open it up with Julian Sayin, they can do whatever they want with the passing game. But to establish a bit of a run game and allow yourself to see what you are up front, especially with the week off and then heading out west to Washington, I think is really important to establish that you are a physical, up front, can run the ball whenever you want type of team. And so, Ohio is certainly not as good as Washington will be, or most of the teams that Ohio State plays inside of the Big Ten, but they should be a significant step up from Grambling, and so you're going to get some idea of what you're about in that space.
Yeah, I think coming out of the Texas game and how buttoned up and conservative that game plan was, in Ohio State not being able to consistently find answers on the ground game, is like I wasn't that concerned about it, and I'm not sure that I left last week against Grambling that concerned about it either, because I don't know how much stock to really put in it. There were things that CJ Donaldson did well that I think you could like. There's things that James Peoples did. There were a lot of things that Bo Jackson did that you could like. There are also some things for all 3 of them. We've been talking all week about ball security for Bo Jackson, but I think, go back to
CJ Donaldson put one on the ground.
You have a botched, pitch play there between Julian Sayin and CJ Donaldson. You've had, I think, some cutback opportunities for James Peoples that have been missed. And, I'm trying to also put it in terms of when Ryan Day is saying he means it, that this team is going to look a lot different in a month's time. It probably is going to need to look a bit different in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Maybe that doesn't have to show itself a fully finished version on Saturday night against the Bobcats. But, I think there's probably a lot of things that you put it on film and you get the reps, and James Peoples is going to get better, and you're going to see more of the explosiveness. CJ Donaldson getting more familiarity. I expect that that's going to come along. I don't think that we've seen the very best of Ohio State's run game.
No, that's what we said last week. We certainly were not going to overreact to anything positive that happened with the run game against Grambling State, but if there would have been consistent struggles against them as well, then all of a sudden you're like, okay, that's something to be concerned about. I don't know that we are closer to an answer after that game than we were before it, but I think Saturday will provide some answers in that space and maybe give us a sense of what the identity of this offense is going to be down the road. We saw a 60% run in the first game, 60% pass in the second game. I don't know if the strategy or the goal long term is 50-50. I wouldn't imagine so. I wouldn't imagine, but I think that making sure that when you need to run the ball, you're able to is an important piece of playing in the Big Ten, and that's certainly going to be important when you get into the games against Minnesota and Wisconsin and Illinois and Penn State and Michigan. So this is a big weekend for that, I think.
I do think that's the real difference. Does this team need to run it exclusively or be 60 to 65% between the 20s? I don't think so. I think that would be misallocation of resources on a team that has Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis and Will Kazmarek and Max Clare and everybody that we've mentioned for the passing attack. And I think what you saw on Saturday is closer to the version of the Ohio State offense that we will see in a month's time, featuring the passing attack for one, but even, some of the pop passes, the jet sweeps, using Brandon Ennis to get to the perimeter. Ohio State was pretty clearly not going to challenge Texas that way. They didn't want to. By the end of the year, maybe they would if they rematch in the playoff. But that's the stuff that it was so, limited, buttoned down, conservative against Texas. That's not going to be what a Ryan Day offense looks like for very long.
No, it's smart that they did it the way they did against Texas. You go situational, you play to your strengths. But again, everything in the entire offseason was guided towards that one game. And now, as Ryan Day said on Tuesday, now we got 1 week to prepare for Grambling, 1 week to prepare for Ohio. They'll get an extra week to prepare for Washington. But you are now trying to figure out what the identity of this team is. And it's not all built around, beat Texas, and then we'll figure out the rest. It's time to start figuring out the rest.
Yeah. I think part of that defensively, for thing number one for me that I'm very much looking forward to see is what a healthy Logan George can do for Ohio State. We got a number of questions about that over on the Letterman Row side of things about, he didn't play at all against Grambling. Is that a red flag? Is that a warning? And, you mentioned this, I think on Snap Judgments on Tuesday, that we had seen a period of practice in training camp where guys coming off the field didn't see Logan George. We don't know what he was dealing with. We don't know what the coach's decision was on the health status. He was not on the availability report for either of the first two games. But again, that's not a hard and fast rule for how Ohio State will handle their injury situations. But if we're looking at the defense and some of the areas, they gave up 7 points to Texas and 0 to Grambling. Yeah. It is a nitpicking type situation. That's sort of the way it works for Ohio State non-conference games. I think the run defense can be a little bit sharper than it was on Saturday. I think I'm not expecting necessarily that Logan George would go out there and be a dominant all Big Ten type pass rusher. I'm not sure that that's what Ohio State was even looking for when they signed him out of the transfer portal and out of Idaho State. But if he can give the sort of solid edge setting, run supporting work that JT really did for an extended period of time, that's a high bar to reach. Yeah. I understand that. But if that's a part of the defense that you've looked at for the first two games and said that could be a little bit better, I wonder if Logan George could be part of the solution, not the solution. No. Because I'm talking about maybe 15 to 20 snaps out of Logan George. And, what that looks like, I thought the end of spring was really encouraging. The spring game itself, people were talking about the heavy hands from Ryan Day and the punch, and that the Buckeyes were having a hard time blocking him during the playoff push when he got here. But, I'm adding somebody else out there who is a legitimate part of the rotation and seeing them for the first time. I'm always going to be up for that.
When you have linebackers like Sonny Styles and Arvel Reese that can flow to the ball pretty much anywhere, all you're asking in a lot of cases of that defensive end in Logan George's role is to, as you said, set the edge. Make sure that the play doesn't have a cutback lane. Make sure that the guy has to get outside because that'll allow Ohio State and their team speed to clean it up. So as long as Logan George is able to win at the point of attack, then that's really all he's being asked to do. He's not going to be out there asked to pass rush. He's not going to be out there being asked to get 7 or 8 tackles or make plays in the backfield. His job is to make sure that those linebackers, the demons that they are, have an opportunity to eviscerate people.
Have we moved from aliens to demons?
Yeah,
now?
Those two are much more demonic on the field than I think, extraterrestrial.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, that's one thing. A second thing, what are you absolutely certain is true about this team?
That Julian Sayin can lead this team to a national championship. I guess, there were, I won't deny that I had questions about that in the middle of August, but based on what we've seen in the first 2 weeks, I don't, there was a lot of conversation, and maybe this is because of the way the rest of college football has looked in the first 2 weeks, and which is not altogether unusual because no one's really perfect or playing super clean football this early in the season. But I would count myself as one of the people who in March, April, May was saying, well, I don't think Ohio State is like a realistic chance to win the national championship this year. I didn't think that they were like going to come out and like look like one of the top 1 or 2 teams in the country to this point.
Okay.
Like, I thought they'd get better as the season went along. I thought clearly they have a lot of top end talent, but I was concerned about the defensive tackle situation, a little bit concerned about the run game, concerned about, does Julian or Lincoln Keenholz have enough to be that guy to take over and go win a game at quarterback? I don't have any concerns about Julian Sayin at this point. And again, some of that might be because the rest of college football looks like they're struggling to catch up. But Ohio State has done such a really good job getting Julian ready. And now you see why he was the 5-star, number 1 ranked quarterback in the country in the class of 2024. And I completely on the level thinking that he can get the national championship done for Ohio State.
Yeah, I think even in August when you were looking ahead and making predictions, I think you had the regular season at 10-2, and then whatever happens in the postseason, like that's the bracket's a different matter entirely, and the margins are thin for Ohio State. Like,
I still think that's possible.
100%. I'm not saying that like that's impossible just because Julian Sayin is playing at this level and the defense is that good. They're at Illinois is not going to be a walk in the park. You have Penn State at the start of November. The Big House is its own animal at the end. Like,
still have to go to Wisconsin. Still have to go to Washington. And like, it's not going to be an easy schedule. I'm
starting to remove those games a little bit in my mind, especially. We're building up this first road trip for Ohio State, and we will, especially during improvement week.
Well, Ohio State's 0-1 in our lifetime playing on the West Coast in a regular season game.
Washington allowing 21 points to Colorado State, which then turned around and scored 21 points against Northern Colorado, has me thinking that they're not equipped to deal with Ohio State. But that's another game. Ohio
that's a week. That's 2 weeks from now.
Ohio is this week, and I think expanding the passing attack, as you said, I think it is a lot more advanced, even from week 1 to week 2, than it seemed like it was going to be.
Yeah.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I thought that the talent was still here, whether you want to use the blue chip rankings or the S&P Plus or any other metric. Like, Ohio State's talent across the board was still at worst top 5, and many had them number 1 or number 2 going into the year. So it's not like the branch was flimsy. And when I was alluding to the margin for error being thin, like, college football is really difficult on a week-to-week basis. Even if you have a talent advantage, you can look, no further than Florida and South Florida a week ago. You can,
or like Clemson for first half against Troy. Right?
Yeah, both ways. Or how anemic their offense looked against LSU in week 1. It's hard to survive, and I do think that is one of the benefits of the way the playoff expansion has helped college football. And Ohio State's in 2024 is a perfect example of that. Right. But when you look at this team, when it is a fully formed Death Star, that's what I think it's going to be, with Julian Sayin throwing to Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis and Bryson Rogers and Mylan Graham as they come along. So I think back to April for me with what is this passing attack going to look like, and there's the notion out there from some people that it was not a real competition, it was not legitimate. Lincoln Keenholz couldn't have supplanted Julian Sayin. However you feel about it, there were legitimate concerns after some practices in this building that were not coming from me, and they were not coming from you, about what this passing attack was going to look like. And it has become, I think this is the latest and best barometer of the quarterback development success of Ryan Day, and then now Brian Hartline, and now Billy Fessler. Ryan Day is always going to be at the top of that. He's going to get the lion's share of the credit, and I think largely deserves it for what he does with those guys. But how dramatically Julian Sayin has changed, and that's not, the release is the release. Right. The accuracy is the accuracy. All those things are still as good as they were at that point. But running an offense is different. Commanding an offense is different. Over the span of 5 months, it's like he's on a rocket ship.
Over the span of the last 5 weeks. If based on what we saw in the first 3 weeks or 3 days of training camp in August, you looked at it and you're like, I'm not sure I see that guy being the guy. I don't see him being the starter, because I think even at that time, we're like, he's going to be the starter. He's going to end up winning this job. But the leap that he's made in such a short order, from the time he was named the starter to week 1 to week 2, I think that the sky is the limit for him. And obviously, when you're dealing with the types of weapons Ohio State has on offense, the quarterback, his job has to be to make it go. His job has to be the facilitator. But Julian Sayin in these first 2 weeks has shown that he can also be the playmaker. I mean, it's not going to get a lot of conversation because it's just one first down against Texas. But the play that he made rolling in the end zone to Carnell Tate on the little comeback,
right?
Like that is a high level play for a guy in a game in his first start in college football against the number one team in the country in his own, in the end zone. Like that is not a play that just anyone can make. And once you see that, and then you couple that with the ball that he threw to Carnell Tate on Saturday for the touchdown, the ability to recognize what the defense was doing on the 2 Jeremiah Smith touchdowns, like he's doing things at a very high level. And if that ascension is extrapolated, like there's no reason to think by the time Ohio State's getting ready to play Penn State, Julian Sayin isn't going to be in the conversation as a Heisman favorite at that point, because this is a like get on board now, like it's going in that direction, and it's going to go fast when you have these receivers.
It's odd to me, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like normally as you start looking at the September Heisman race, there's way more national coverage of it.
Yeah.
And it feels like the national voices are just at a loss that the Arch Manning hype collapsed in week 1, because they're just like, they're not even suggesting anybody else can win it.
They tried it with John Mateer now, like at Oklahoma. He's getting some buzz, but I don't think anybody who watched him against Michigan was like, oh, that's the Heisman winner. Yeah, he ran in 2 touchdowns. He plays a good game. But I think, I mean, we've talked about this before, but when it comes to preseason polls, preseason Heismans, like all this stuff is stupid. It's just there so that people like us have something to talk about in the offseason. But honestly, nobody was thinking about Travis Hunter to win the Heisman last year in week 1, except for me when I put a bet on him to win it at plus 5,000.
Yeah.
Like nobody else was doing that but me at the time.
Yeah, you were the only one.
So
famously.
Yeah, obviously. So, I think that it's nice when you can be like, oh, let's actually watch how the guys played before we start giving them awards.
I mean, but if Arch had beat Ohio State, they would have done that. That's my issue with it. It's like, you can't have it both ways.
Well, and I think Julian is in a weird position because of Jeremiah Smith. And like, it doesn't matter. As long as Jeremiah Smith gets his share of the balls that Julian throws for touchdowns and yards, Julian is going to still be held back in the Heisman race because people are going to be like, but Jeremiah Smith's there. So either way, like
I think they'll hold each other back, honestly.
It's maybe, I just think with Jeremiah's national brand and the way that people view him as this, not just like generational guy, but like all time type of guy. Like I think that he has enough juice to like skirt the like cluster.
Yeah. I do think that the fact that Carnell, Jeremiah, and Julian Sayin are all on the same team is potentially going to hurt all of them when it comes time for individual awards.
Yeah, maybe.
That's also way down the road.
Sure.
We're 2 weeks into this, and it's.
But what are you sure about for Saturday? What do you no longer doubt?
Yeah, I agreed with you, and I know that that's not fun because it's not a separate thing. But I wanted to point out the development of the passing attack as a whole. The receiving part is not going to surprise anybody, but we've talked ad nauseum about Julian Sayin and what the development track was going to look like. And I think when it is this far ahead of expectations, and maybe America was already thinking this is absolutely going to happen.
And there's a chance he goes out on Saturday and goes 11 for 25 and looks. I mean, there's a chance.
I guess there's a chance.
There's a chance. We saw it happen to C.J. Stroud against Tulsa 3 years ago, right?
11 for 25?
4 years ago, whatever he had. His game against Tulsa that he all of a sudden wasn't the starter the week after because he had a shoulder injury.
I mean, those happen.
I'm saying, like, anything can happen, but like, what we've seen.
Don't play that game. You knew that his shoulder was banged up. He had the maintenance.
I'm going to play both sides of this issue. I'm just saying, we're saying a lot of really great things about Julian, but as you said, this is week 3. So like anything can still happen. There could be a step back, certainly, but I wouldn't expect that based on what we've seen out of him in the first couple of weeks, but also what we've seen historically out of Ryan Day's quarterbacks.
Well, and I think that this is a useful litmus test for where that progress is for him, because it is one thing to go complete those routes on air in practice, and he's always going to look really good doing that. And Grambling does not. There were times, the 87-yard touchdown, Jeremiah is just running free down the field. He makes the correct decision and the correct read, and he gets the football out, and it's the easiest touchdown that either of those two will ever have. Ohio is a step up from that. Are they Jim Knowles and Penn State? No, they're not. But
this is a battle of champions.
Kind of.
This is a champions. I mean, Ohio did win its conference last year. Ohio State finished 4th in there. So technically,
that's a great point.
Ohio might. You got to watch out for them Bobbies.
Wow. You're absolutely right, partner. I don't know if this answer is different for you, because thing number 3 was going to be something that you are still very much uncertain about. And you started with the run game. That's what you wanted to see on Saturday night. Is that the same?
No, to me, it's the pass rush. I don't know. And I feel like I'm probably being hypercritical of Kenyatta Jackson in the first 2 weeks, but I haven't seen him impact many plays. And so I have very high expectations for him coming into the year. You boldly predicted that he was going to break Chase Young's
He's a little bit behind schedule.
Single season record for Ohio State sacks in a season.
He's going to need like 7 on Saturday.
I just haven't seen, and I know he got hurt against Texas. I'm trying to be fair, and it's not just about him. Caden Curry, has played well, but not gotten to the quarterback. We haven't seen the pressure up the middle that we were accustomed to seeing with Tyleek and Ty Hamilton a year ago.
Yeah.
Again, Texas is very misdirection oriented, does a lot of eye candy, quick releases, quick throws. Grambling State did the same thing, but that's college football now. So you got to find a way to impact the quarterback a different way, whether that's getting your hands up and getting hands on footballs, which is something that Ohio State did very well with Jack Sawyer and Tyleek and Ty and JT. So I'm a little, we got to a point in camp where the concern for what's happening on the defensive line shifted from tackle to end. And what we've seen I thought Bo Atkinson has played okay in his first 2 games. I'm not sure that he has the explosiveness and the twitch to make a major impact in the Big Ten. We haven't seen Logan George play. We've seen CJ Hicks sparingly, and he's made some plays, but he's still not been a guy that you can just set out there and let loose. Someone has to be that guy. And if the answer for Ohio State's pass rush woes, and I say that knowing that it's been 2 weeks, and again, trying not to be too hyper reactionary, but if the answer to that is send Arvell, move Sonny, then I think that Ohio State will run into a game where that's a problem. Because there's going to be games when you need Arvell and Sonny to just play linebacker, and you're going to need guys up front to go ahead and make plays and be difference makers. And I don't know if anything we've seen in the first 2 weeks of the season from the defensive ends really puts that on display. And again, some of that might be simply, and we talked about this on Snap Judgments on Tuesday, because we have not been able to catch back up with Matt Patricia. We don't know what these guys are being asked to do. And so I'm reluctant to throw too much on them dirt-wise, but I do think that it is a concern, because I don't know that there's been a traditional drop back pass sack yet for Ohio State in 2 games.
Yeah. The thing that I'm keeping in the back of my mind, or at least trying to, and at least remember, is how many conversations you and I had, some of them on camera, some of them not, with Jack Sawyer specifically, but even going back even further, Chase Young, Jonathan Cooper, or it's like, you guys are, because we would come out of some games thinking about Youngstown State, and it's like, you got no pressure. Like, don't you guys have one-on-one matchups? Can't you just go win them? And like, does it matter what scheme or what they're running or the ball's coming out quickly? And it would be, I can't repeat all the things that were said, but it was like, well, we're just not supposed to right now.
Yeah. And that's kind of what Ryan Day alluded to on Tuesday in his press conference. He was asked about young players at the end of the game making a difference. But how do you judge what someone's doing versus is what they're doing part of the scheme? Is that part of the plan? And clearly,
and he said, "Don't freelance.
Right? Don't freelance. Don't go out there." Like we've had conversations, and JT is the first one that I'll think of, like where he's told us, like he was told, "Don't do spin moves. Don't do this. Don't try to get to the quarterback your own way."
Yeah. And
so I don't know if that's the case now. I don't.
It has to be, doesn't it? I mean, it's scrambling.
So we've seen 2 weeks. There was Arvell had the only sack that was credited against Texas, and that was on a play where Manning stepped up into the pocket. I think there should have been a second one because Caden Curry had one similar to that earlier in that game. And then last week you have the sack by Zion Grady where that was the one where the quarterback was flushed out of the pocket. And like, that's the most traditional sack.
Yeah.
So I just don't know. And so I'm trying not to overreact, but I also don't want to like just whistle past the graveyard there and pretend like it's not on my mind, because I fully expected to see Kenyatta Jackson come out and look like a monster in these first 2 weeks. And especially considering Texas's offensive line situation.
I thought he was pretty good against Texas.
Yeah, I know you said that after the game, and because we had this conversation in the car on the way back, on the way out of the stadium. But I'm normally able to see like the defensive lineman winning on the field, and I just haven't seen that out of really anybody on the defensive line not named Caden McDonald in the first 2 weeks. And so that's still up there for me as like concern.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if they maybe should have not played him last week, given the injury in week 1. I'm not a doctor, so I can't second guess that. But I wonder if it would have been better off for him in the long run to get some of that rest, and for them to give those opportunities to CJ Hicks or Zion Grady or Epi Satanale, whoever. I mean, because I don't think Kenyatta Jackson needs it, and I thought that the first half was pretty encouraging. There's a part of him that's like, I think he can be a better version. I love Jalen Holmes, a better version of that. He's got one thing in 4 years that we've never really talked about with Kenyatta is the wingspan.
Yeah.
And I think that was the part that in Texas was like, even if he wasn't there, the second that he puts his arms up or out, you're going to have a hard time getting that. That could be an HOB situation.
Yeah.
I think that that's going to be really good for Ohio State down the road. But it hasn't happened yet. And so he's still trying to become that full-time, first-string dominant player, the same way Caden Curry is. I think the first 2 weeks have been largely positive for him, but we'll see how that works out. I guess I'm curious and uncertain on if I'm overreacting to the fumble for Bo Jackson. I don't think I am.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I think I've reacted to it for 72 straight hours. Like it was the one thing on my mind for 3 days after the Grambling State game ended. We're going to find out Saturday. I think we will know the answer to whether or not that's an overreaction based on what time he gets into that game on Saturday night. Because again, I don't think anybody who watched the game and just does an apples to apples comparison between Bo Jackson, CJ Donaldson, and James Peoples would look at them. And I don't know that anybody that saw all three of them and the way that they ran the ball and go, Bo Jackson's he's the third best of that group.
Right.
Like, I just don't think so. I think everybody saw it. But the one thing, like, it just doesn't matter if you don't hold on to the football. So I don't know that you can overreact to it. The only guy that can overreact to it is Bo Jackson by making sure that like he doesn't ever fumble again.
Well, he can't overreact. That's a proper reaction.
Yeah. Well, something's going to have to. Again, Ryan Day's comments on Tuesday are not accidental. Like, he does not say things on accident. When he said, if you see it in a game, we've probably been seeing it in practice, that is like the on-air sign flashing going, okay, Bo, are you paying attention? So I think
they had his attention on Saturday.
I think Ohio State wants to play him early and often against OU. But I don't know.
I wanted to bring it back full circle because I agree that you look at the rushing attack as one of the, and I didn't think we'd be in this spot for Ohio State. And I'm not sure that it's even like truly necessary for Ohio State to be the best version of itself, that it has to run for 150 yards or 200 yards a game. It does have to be able to convert in the red zone and finish off, 3rd and 1 and, 4th and 2, whatever. But when it needs to get the tough yards, it's got to do that. We've had that conversation
let's go back to 2021 or 2022. Like, CJ Stroud is maybe the best passer in the history of Ohio State football.
Right.
And there were multiple games in 21-22 where we're like, well, the offense can't win a 3rd and 1. They cannot win a 4th and 1. So if you're in that position again, it doesn't matter how good Julian Sayin is, there's going to come a game. Maybe it's November 29th or whatever day that is in Ann Arbor, where all of a sudden, I just almost used a profanity, but if we go back to November of 2021, Ohio State's first drive of the second half in Ann Arbor, where the game is 14-13 at half, and you're thinking, okay, the Buckeyes get the ball, going to come out, score.
It's going to be over.
And it'll be over, and they get 3rd and 1 and get stopped. 4th and 1 get stopped, and whoop, game over.
Yeah. It was over, and it was going the other direction from what we thought. So I know that part's important, and so the thing that I'm most uncertain about for this entire week, and we don't have to keep talking about it on every single show. Maybe we will anyway.
Yeah.
Was just like how much stock is actually being put in that, because I can't answer that getting ready for a Wednesday night in the Woody, standing here for a Three Things Thursday. Bo Jackson has those practices, the Bloody Tuesday and a Wednesday night, to prove himself. And then Ohio State will go sit down and say, all right, here's what you did in practice. These issues either do or don't exist. And then we're going to find out what they mean in terms of playing time on Saturday nights. Like, I don't think that the last carry on Saturday is going to be the final determining factor, because the other 8 still have to count for something.
Yeah.
And I know that they will. But then do you correct that in practice? Do you see something different? Again, no accidents.
The response from Bo Jackson is much more important at this point than the impetus.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And again, everything that we say that we're solid on or that we're concerned about is probably an overreaction at this point. So like there's certainly an opportunity.
You don't think that the sample size is large enough after 2 games?
I don't. There's going to be a course correction on the things that we're optimistic about, and there's going to be a course correction on the things that we're questioning at the moment. So this Saturday is a good place to then take a step back and evaluate for 2 weeks and see exactly where this is going, because I keep going back to Ryan Day in August talking about trying to find the identity of this team, and everything he's suggested about it is like adjectives that have nothing to do with actual mentality on the this is a team that plays on the edge. Great. Can you run the ball? Can you throw the ball? What are you?
Yeah.
Are you just gonna go out and be the country's best defense and then just pluck along every week and find a way to win? Sure. But we're gonna see starting Saturday, I think, a much better idea of where this offense is going from a identity standpoint over the next 2 months.
Can't wait to find out. The sample size will grow by 1 up to 3. Game week number 3 in the Horseshoe. Looking forward to it in full coverage as always on the Austin Birm Show. This has been a Three Things Thursday on the beat. We appreciate you joining us. Stick around Friday. It's Bold Peas time. You're not going to want to miss that one as we close out that week and get ready for Ohio at Ohio State Saturday night, 7 o'clock. That's on Peacock. You have 2 more days to get ready if you're not signed up. Don't say we didn't warn you. He's Birm. I'm Austin. We'll talk to you later.